So on episode 4 of the Highlights Only podcast, I had an opportunity to sit down with Colin Whitcomb, the owner of Canary Coffee Bar. This was especially interesting to me because he was so open about sharing his story, his finances, how his career started in coffee, and what steps he took to open up his own coffee bar. We also dive deep into, how he's building his own brand and differentiating from all the other coffee shops and big chain coffee places that we see pretty much every day. This entire podcast was filmed in his coffee bar, so you might hear some cups clinking, but that won't ever take away from his story. Episode 4. Let's go. How's it going today, man?
Great, man.
Awesome,
Thanks for being here.
Oh, man, I appreciate you for doing this, especially last minute. A lot of people don't respond to my emails and Instagram messages, so you're the real MVP, man.
Oh, I appreciate that. We get messages, and I really try to do my best to respond to people because it feels like the right thing to do. People reach out, and a lot of people, you're not asking for anything from me, but a lot of people want to sell me on something. And so I feel like at the very least, we live in this culture where it's like the ghosting culture. It's so easy to just not respond. So I'm doing my best right now to just at least respond to people, and something like this is this is a really great opportunity for us. I felt like this was a really kind thing to want to include me in your podcast. So I'm really happy to be here.
Definitely, man. I appreciate you for doing this. Like I said once before, I'll kick things off just like this.
Okay.
When did you get into coffee?
Okay. I got into coffee in 2006. I was finished with college for about a year and a half and had sort of gotten out of a weird relationship, a tough relationship, had moved back with my parents. And after doing that for a couple of months, realized I didn't want to live with my parents anymore. And I was walking down the street one day and bumped into a friend and told them I was looking for a job. And they said, "Oh, you should apply at Altera at the Lake." The company that's Collectivo was called Altera Coffee at that time. And Altera at the Lake hires so many people in the summertime. So I got a job down there in the summer of 2006. And that's when I started working in coffee.
Gotcha, man. When you started, I'm guessing, since you just started getting into working at a coffee shop and stuff, just to get off get out of your parents' house, probably off of your mom and dad's couch.
Yeah.
Did you envision something like this?
No. I thought at that time that maybe I would get a Master of Fine Arts and study more literature, maybe become a poet or a writer, something like that. So I didn't know anything about coffee. I didn't care anything about coffee. I liked coffee shops. I liked hanging out in coffee shops. I liked meeting people in coffee shops. But I wasn't really passionate about coffee or business or anything like that at that time.
Gotcha. We spoke a little bit about, well, of course, before coffee, what you were doing. You got your undergrad degree from
UWM,
and that was in literature.
Correct. Yeah, so, I studied English.
In English, what made you want to do that?
Well, in high school, I really wanted to be a writer. I was really into F. Scott Fitzgerald. I was really into Ernest Hemingway. And Hemingway had been a journalist who had then pivoted and become a short story writer and then a novelist. And I kind of thought that would be a good place for me to start too. So I had started studying journalism at Nebraska Lincoln, who had a really good journalism program, but a very intense journalism program, and it didn't fit for me. I wasn't the type of academic student in journalism that was trying to be at the top of the class, and so I decided that I would study English instead.
Gotcha. So you never thought about writing a book?
I did sort of think about writing a book, but I didn't really have any sort of books that I necessarily wanted to write. Sort of like the autobiographical, the way that, This Side of Paradise sort of resembles F. Scott Fitzgerald's life. I kind of thought maybe I would do something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Back to coffee, flipping script. Just wanted to ask that quick question. So you've been in coffee for over 13 years actually.
Yeah.
Worked at multiple different coffee shops from the research that I've done, at least. How has that helped you build such a successful business like this?
Okay. Well, I think one thing that I've had the opportunity to do is be in a lot of different roles in coffee. So I've had the opportunity to do things like be a barista. I did lots of barista training. So I had an understanding of what goes into like building a successful employee, the types of things and tools that they need to be successful. I had an understanding of like how coffee is grown and where it comes from. I've had the opportunity to visit places where coffee is grown and understand like what's done at coffee origin or coffee farms that makes it special. I've had the opportunity to do like sales support. And for a number of years, I worked really closely with the CEO of Madcap Coffee, who was one of my best friends. And I think at that time, I sort of got a sense for like what goes into creating a successful brand, what goes into creating a successful retail company. So I think those were things that were good tools for me going forward. He gave me a little bit of a sense of like how profit and loss sheet works and things like that. But I taught myself some stuff as well over the last couple of years, like watching lots of YouTube videos. My parents ran a chiropractic business for a while as well. So I had the opportunity to kind of like understand a little bit about like what they did to be successful too.
So the experience at Madcap Coffee, that kind of like built you up to become an entrepreneur. Did you kind of just make that decision, be like, hey, like it's my time to go out on my own? And what kind of influenced you to make that decision?
No. I think if anything, like watching somebody do something like that, it's sort of like terrifying. And I didn't really want to be a business owner at all. I didn't want to be the one in charge of everything, paying taxes and all that stuff. I describe this as kind of like maybe the last good idea that we had left. We had a little bit of capital to put into a business, and I had left Milwaukee and lived in Washington, D.C. for about 7 years. And when my wife and I came back to Milwaukee, I knew that coffee was probably the best place for me to be. That's where my resume was. That's the type of job I could plug myself into. But I had a really hard time plugging myself into stuff here. A lot of the roasters here are very big. They're very old, or else they're very, very new. And I didn't really quite fit into either one of those. I was looking to do something maybe a little bit more progressive, celebrating where coffee's at right now, and then also trying to like remove some of the barriers that I saw in between like where coffee's at and where the customers were at. So it was sort of fortuitous. I was thinking about like, I was working part-time at a coffee shop, and I was thinking about like how I thought we could make a coffee shop successful, or what I might do differently at a coffee shop to make it more successful. And then my wife turned to me one night on the couch and said, like, what if we opened our own coffee shop? And I was like, I've been thinking the exact same thing. And so we decided we would take whatever proceeds we had from selling the house and try to turn it into this business.
Jeez. So you kind of had the entrepreneur mindset in the back of your head, but you just like, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this kind of thing? Yeah.
And I've been fortunate also to like, I know dozens of people who've started their own coffee company, who've been baristas and then decided like, I'm going to own my own coffee shop. I want to work for myself. I'm tired of working for somebody else. So I think I'm like, I've seen people do this. Like, we can do this too.
Awesome. And you sold your house to start this company.
Yeah.
Let's get into the nitty gritty, like straight.
Okay.
How much did it, really cost to really start something like this? You don't have to give me exact numbers. You can around this amount.
It's fine. We put in 10. We got a $90,000 loan. We got a $12,500 grant, and we got a $15,000 micro loan to the city. And then we ended up putting in a couple $1,000s of our own money on top of that. And we did get some family money as well. So I think we did this for less than $150,000.
Wow, that's not bad
No, it's
considering
not
what
bad.
you have here.
It's not bad. I know lots of people who spend $300,000, $350,000, which is a lot. And so that was sort of intentional too, right? Like when you look at how long it takes to pay back a $300,000 loan. I mean, it's not a 30-year term when you take out a loan for a business like it is for a house, right? And of course, the interest rates are a lot higher because the risk of operating a business is a lot higher than, like, you're not going to default on a house loan usually, right? So we definitely tried to keep the costs low with the idea that we would be able to finish paying it back in a more reasonable amount of time, right? I'm not going to be stuck paying this for the next 15 years, hopefully.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense. So no partners, just you and your wife.
Yeah, I
just
didn't want a business partner at all. I know lots of people who have business partners, and some of those relationships work really well. Some of them are more problematic. I think also what we were trying to do was, I think what we were trying to do was a little bit more progressive, and business investors are risk averse, right? They want to invest in something like, I've seen this work, this can work, I can get a return on my investment. A good friend of mine, Cora Lambert, opened a really, really exciting coffee shop on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. It was called Box Kite Coffee. She had a business partner, and of course, rents are very high there. And they were trying to do lots of the sort of stuff that we're doing here. Big coffee menu, bar style service. They had some like tasty light eats, but they were struggling. And, you know, Cora showed up to work one day and the locks were changed. And her investor's like, look, this business is failing and you own, you know, whatever it was, you own 10% of a failing business, which means you own nothing and like you're done. So Cora ended up having to, you know, leave New York City, kind of regroup herself, and she's doing great now. She's working for an awesome company called Equator Coffee and Teas, and she looks super happy. And I mean, that is definitely a worst case scenario, but I think I was very, very nervous about the idea of taking on an investor along with us.
Jeez, I didn't know it would be like that sometimes. But I guess when you think about like investors, like they pretty much are giving you, here's all of our money, but you own this percentage of the company. So if it's like you own 10% and they feel as if like it's failing, it's like, well, you know what, you're out, we're shutting it down, and, you know, taking our losses.
Or then, like, even if it's really successful, like what you're only entitled to 10% of what it actually ends up making. And so then you're in a position where you might have to like really grow and grow and grow and grow. And like, I don't necessarily want to be in charge of a company that's going to do 10 cafes in 5 years, 12 cafes in 3 years. So I think having 100% of something a little bit smaller felt a little bit more manageable to me.
Having 100% of something is better than owning 10% or 0% of nothing.
Right.
That is awesome. Oh, man. So one thing you mentioned when starting this was just kind of like finding your place like in Milwaukee, because a lot of the other cafes and coffee shops they're either really old and they've been around for a while, they're established. And is it that the fact that they don't want to share their connections, or
it's like that they do what they do, and it's like they're kind of stuck in that. Like, right, when you're a 25-year-old roasting company and that's what you've been doing for 25 years, like there isn't really as much space for you to then like change and do something different, right? Especially when you're trying to like, oh, we're going to do something in Madison, we're going to do something in Chicago, and then who knows what happens after that. Like, you've got a business model that is who you are, that's who your brand is, and it's not as flexible as something a little bit smaller. Right. Yeah, those generation of roasters were really like the people that kind of looked at Starbucks and thought like, we can do that and it'll be local. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I like Starbucks, but I had this frustration with the way that places like Starbucks or whatever want to serve you coffee, which is, it's a very fast food oriented service model, right? Like the way that you get coffee from these different coffee roasters who by and large, the way that they want to differentiate their business is along the lines of quality. We have great coffee. We do all these things to get the great coffee. This is really special coffee. But the only way that we want to serve it to you is the same way that you order a hamburger from McDonald's, right? Or the same way that you get a sub from Jimmy John's. So there's a little bit of tension there that I was trying to resolve.
Gotcha. And I want you to elaborate on that, honestly, because I want you to go into like what you're doing to differentiate yourself from, number one, all the other coffee roasters that have been around for a while, as well as some of the chains.
Okay. Yeah, I think sometimes people feel like what we're doing is a little weird, but I think what we're doing is completely natural. So we're doing bar style service and seated table service, just like you might get at any sort of like cocktail or wine bar, right? You can walk straight up to the bar, you'll get greeted by somebody, and we'll just start taking your order. There's no need for us to like take payment from you right away, right? There's no need for you to stand in line. You can grab a seat, it'll come to your table. So like there's no barrier of entry to get the experience that you want. You can simply come in, ask for something, and start to relax, right? So other things that we do, like we present you with a menu, right? So that you're not necessarily like standing there awkwardly trying to decipher like 16 menu boards of this like tiny script. Like, what do they have? Do they have what I want? I'm not sure. Like you get the opportunity to kind of like sit, have a little space, like get drawn to something.
Yeah. I appreciate that too. Number one, because that was the one thing I guess I'm so like programmed to like go into like a coffee shop or anything like that, where it's like, let me look at the menu. I like walked in, I'm like, where's the menu? And then like you asked me for you want a cup, and you gave me the menu, and I'm like, okay, this is actually a nice piece to it. It's definitely something that you're doing to differentiate yourself.
Absolutely.
Other shops.
Absolutely. And that was a big part of our business plan, right? Like when we presented the business plan to a lender, like we are definitely trying to show them like, this is how we can be different. This is how we can like leverage who we are to have more of an impact and more of like a resonance with people. Like I had this other idea, like, you know, we live in this global time where we're so interconnected. And coffee is really well positioned to like show you how well you are connected to everybody. All the people who pick the coffee, all the people who process the coffee. Like without those people, the coffee wouldn't taste good. When you get that great cup of coffee and you enjoy that cup of coffee, you are really celebrating all the hard work that goes into it. So we really wanted something that was going to help people feel connected to the coffee, and you know, whether they intellectually felt that or not, they would emotionally feel connected to it. And I think that's really important. So I'm always like kind of like that great Maya Angelou quote, like people won't remember what you said. People will remember how you made them feel. Right? That's
the truth. That
She's a brilliant woman, right?
Yeah, she is, definitely. One thing about you spoke about your brand.
Yeah.
What steps are you taking? Well, besides differentiating, like you're definitely differentiating with, you know, your style of coffee, the way that you're serving the coffee, and just like the space, just in general.
Yeah.
What are you doing outside of that to build your own personal brand?
Oh, well, that's a good question. In terms of brand, I think, you know, people are so sophisticated with the way that they consume brand these days, right? And so, when we thought about Canary, I think we thought a lot about something that would feel like colorful, airy, fun, something that felt like spacious, and like the canaries are alive. They're doing stuff. They're like evolving. So I think a lot less about like the physicality of a canary and more just about like how the brand makes people feel. I don't feel like I'm a very good personal brand person.
Yeah. Nobody is. Don't even worry about it.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that. I feel like I know people in coffee or whatever that I'm like I don't know how you curate your personal brand so well. But I also think like I'm sure you agree with this. It's like, you know, you love the way that like the internet and social media connects you to other people, but then we're all like sort of like wrestling at the same time with the way that it like addicts you and like draws you in, and it feels like you can never escape from your device sometimes. So I think part of one of the things that we've been doing with the social media and with the sort of brand is like opening it up a little bit. Like when I was really surprised, like I didn't want to ask any of the baristas to be like, oh, can you like take pictures for Instagram? Because I feel like that's work. But they've been excited to do it. So I think it's been cool. We've like, yeah, you know, if you want the Instagram password, like have the Instagram password, like post something on social media, post a story, like, and I think that's allowed it to feel what we wanted it to feel, which was like just like more fun, you know, and just like have content that like you can latch onto. It doesn't have to be so serious.
Yeah. I think you do a good job with it as well. Just on Instagram, everything that I've seen is very, very good. One thing I also noticed is just you as a person, like you're behind the bar. A lot of places like this, the owner is not behind the bar.
Yeah.
They're somewhere else.
Yeah.
They're gone. They're not paying any attention to what's going on. So
Yeah.
I think even besides Instagram, you're building your personal brand by just being
Absolutely.
here.
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, I'm so glad you noticed that. And I think, like being back there and like trying to, I guess, be a role model for the people, like, and like kind of like show them in a way like this is how we can do it. This is how we can interact with people. It's been something that's really, really important with me. I've done lots of business consulting. I did sales, so I watched lots of people kind of do what we're doing now, which is like bring a business into existence. And a lot of those people were people who like had capital to start a business, but they didn't necessarily have any experience working behind a counter. And it is incredibly awkward to watch somebody who's never done anything but do like wealth management, like kind of like go to a table and be like, oh, how are you doing today? So I've been very lucky in that too. I have a bit more personable style of service. But I guess I do try to create space for be like, I want the people who are here to be able to be themselves. And like, that's something that I've let them know from the very moment that we interviewed, like, if you get to work here, like you get to be yourself, you get to play the music that you want to play, like, and just like anything, like if someone makes you uncomfortable and they're being rude, like tell the person to leave. You know, you don't have to like be this corporate person who says like the customer's always right all the time, you know? So I think that has hopefully made this feel like more like real. It's made it feel more like approachable, you know, and it has personality.
Yeah. I mean, especially with this location, you're just crushing it, man.
Thank you. Yeah, the location is like, I wish I could say like, oh, we were so brilliant so we thought of this location. But really, like, I think we got lucky with this location as much as anything else.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially with Grand Avenue, well, whatever it's going to be changed into in the next few years, once that's up and going, from the renderings I saw.
It looks cool, doesn't it?
You're going to get real busy real soon, man.
Well, I think... So, I mean, obviously we understood that there were parts about doing business down here that were good, right? And I think when you're doing a coffee shop, there's different ways you can think about it. A lot of people want to do something like in maybe more a neighborhood where like people live and you kind of like become part of their neighborhood. And so it's been really attractive to certain coffee shops to like go into a neighborhood, be like, oh, we think that, say like, oh, we think 6th and Mitchell has the potential to change or whatever. We think 6th and Mitchell has the potential to gentrify, and like we'll take part in that. I really, really didn't want to do anything like that. I wanted to do something like a little bit more urban, where like we're like a little bit more fast paced, a little bit more fun, like where people might just kind of like hang out for a second, grab something to go. So I like the idea of being like downtown, surrounded by offices, like bars, things that were fun and happening was a lot more attractive to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, this is, like I said before, this is an awesome location.
So and like so many, like this blue building is mostly empty, right? Yep. The buildings around where this food hall is going to be in Grand Avenue are mostly empty. So I think also like there's this idea of like there's just potential here for it to fill in, and not necessarily like, you know, change, but just get filled in.
Yeah, because I mean the city's investing a lot of money into this area.
100%.
As well.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you say that, because like one of the things that I've really been impressed by, or I don't know if impressed has been the right word, but it's been sort of impressed upon me based on my observations, is like the investment in this area of the city has been happening. Like the wealthy powers that be have been slowly kind of like putting money into this part of the city. And then once the Pfizer Forum came, now it's like the dominoes are starting to fall. Like when the city reached out to us and they wanted to do a ribbon cutting, I was kind of like, like I see what's going on. Like they're looking to highlight somebody who maybe kind of got there first, right? And show other people like, oh, you can go into downtown Milwaukee on 3rd Street in Wisconsin and like do something, right?
It makes sense. Wow, I didn't know you had a ribbon cutting. That's pretty dope,
Yeah, we
man.
had a ribbon cutting. But like I say, that wasn't up to me. We did access funds through the city, and so I think they were looking to highlight people who access funds through the city to make it work. But like I say, also to like show other people like, oh, stuff's happening. You could do something down here, right?
I think Milwaukee's just trying to do this. I had a conversation. Have you been to the Crossroads Collective before?
Yes,
absolutely. So Heaven's Table Barbecue. Jason Alston, I just had a conversation with him. I'm actually going to post that one tonight, actually. And he was saying the same thing. Like, the city's trying to turn into something.
Yep, absolutely.
We are not 100% sure what it's going to be,
no, we don't.
But it's going to turn into something.
Well, maybe that's one of the good things about Milwaukee is like it's less like forced, maybe, like when I looked at what was happening in Washington D.C. when you were there, it was almost like completely like proscribed. We're like, okay, we're going to take the Noma neighborhood and we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and then the people will come, But I think Milwaukee's a little bit more like, I don't know what, freewheeling, and people are going to find themselves as they go, maybe. And that's one of the better parts about maybe doing business in Milwaukee too, is like the cost of doing business, comparatively speaking, to some place like that is lower. So it's a little bit easier to kind of like, be who you want to be.
All right. Every company has some sort of like mission statement, logo, motto.
Yeah.
What is yours, and how do you stand by it?
Okay. So I don't know that we don't really have a mission statement or anything like that. We probably should. I know like a lot of successful companies have like their core values that they have too. We haven't quite grown into that yet. I think I probably did sketch out some kind of mission statement at one point, and it was probably something about like creating a space where people would feel connected to other people, where like coffee and tea was the vehicle through which that happened. Something along those lines.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's cool, man. That actually makes sense for the company.
Yeah. I've helped, like, or I was, when Madcap was writing their mission statement, I was sort of like kicking it around like with the literature background, and like the right mission statement feels like it's just, I don't know. It seems like it's never, it's never done, and you're never happy with it. And I didn't really have like the brain space or the energy to like keep working on a mission statement. Because there are some companies that have these like great mission statements. Like, you ever heard about Pepsi's mission statement from the 80s, which is beat Coke? That was their mission statement, beat Coke. Right, something like that is just so perfect. I don't know. I'd love to have something like that at one point in time, and I foresee a time where something like that is going to be more needed. Like if the company were to grow, like we're going to need to have more of that stuff. But because I think we're so small right now, it's been a little bit easier for us to kind of move forward, and I think really we have these conversations about like who we are, how we want to interact with people. And I hope that through the conversations that we have with our staff, that they are able to kind of navigate that mission statement-y kind of thing.
Gotcha. So you haven't been open for a year, right? How many months has it been?
Oh, not even 2. It's been
not even 2 months.
It's been it was 6 weeks on Tuesday.
6 weeks on Tuesday. Oh wow.
So yeah.
I thought it was like maybe Maybe I confused 6 weeks with 6 months.
Oh, man.
Maybe it was 6 something.
Yeah, 6 months. We'll see. It's hard to even imagine about 6 months, but yeah.
So since your doors have opened, what has that taught you about yourself, and what has that taught you about the company or like the business?
Well, what I think I've learned about the business is like the ideas that we had about how we would like interact with people and serve people are working. Like people are responding to what we do and who we are, and that's been incredibly validating. Like, okay, so I'm not crazy. You'd be surprised by how many people that I told, like, so I'm going to do a coffee shop with no line and a huge menu of coffees, and they'd be like, how's that going to work? Like, coffee shops don't do that. Like, no. Like, I know coffee shops don't do that, but like bars do that. Restaurants do that. Like, I don't think that that's weird. So I think what I've learned about the business is like those things can work and people can respond to it. Personally, like, it's been a big struggle to get this open. I think I've learned a lot about how you have to take care of yourself to take care of a company. So I think I link a lot about like hierarchy of needs, right? Like if I'm not doing the things that I need to do to take care of myself, I can't take care of the company, I can't take care of the employees. Like if we're not doing those things to take care of each other, like we really can't take care of our guests either. So it's not over. I think there's still a lot for me to learn. And there's still I actually think there's still a lot of progress to be made in those areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just like finding the balance.
Yeah, well, finding the balance for sure. For sure. I mean, we live in this culture where it's like, it's like you can't ever be doing enough. Like I remember, I feel like when I was a kid, it'd be like, what are you doing? Like nothing. I'm chill. I'm cool. What do you do? Like I just do whatever I want, man. And now it's like the coolest people I know are like, it's like I do this, I do that, I do something else. I'm the busiest motherfucker alive, And it's
That's
like
the truth.
Isn't it though?
It is insane.
It's like like I hate working 7 days a week, So that's kind of what I have to be doing right now until the business finds its feet. Learning that work-life balance has been something that I'm still sort of wrestling with.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I think that's with anyone embarking on any journey, whether it's a new job, a new outside activity, is finding the balance where how can I manage this as well as manage like my mental health, my family, my loved ones, like all of that stuff.
It took me a couple of weeks to like turn my ringer off on my phone. I'm like, I couldn't sleep. I think probably the first couple of weeks because I'm like, I don't know, like when someone's gonna like call or like need something, and like sometime in the second or third week, it was like we were kind of like things were going well, like, and I was getting kind of sick, and I was like, I gotta like go home and like take a nap or something, man. And then like something happened, and I was like emailing, and then like one of the baristas was like, I thought you were gonna leave. Like, yeah, I know, I am gonna leave. Like, I'm really not feeling well. Like, I'm just gonna go home and like sleep for a little while, and then I'm gonna come back and do something. And I was like doing something, and they came back later and were like, go home.
You have your employees telling you to go home.
And like
man.
that, I think that was a big moment for me where I was like, all right, like I'm gonna go home and like just try to unplug for a little bit. So having that like self-talk thing and that feedback loop where like I tell myself like it's okay, But yeah, like last week, remember the beginning of last week was like super rainy. It was like nasty, and like we had the 3 days in a row where the sales were like just not what I was hoping for, and I was just like, oh man, like it's over. This is terrible. Like this could be nothing but a slog all the way through, and I was just like getting kind of depressed about it. Like, oh man, this is just terrible. And then here we are this week, and we're just like doing really well. So I think you just have to. I really have to keep learning to like take it in stride and like let it be what it's going to be.
That makes sense. You've been, I don't want to say you've been in coffee for a while, because you have.
Yeah.
You've worked in like the Milwaukee area, just like, in this area for quite some time. Have you seen a lot of, some of your past customers come follow you over here?
Oh yeah, a few. I think not as many as you might think. I think that the way that people consume coffee and interact with a coffee shop is sort of like, there's different things that work for different people. Like, sometimes it's just about like location, right? Or like, do you have Wi-Fi or something like that? So, a couple people I think that I had like a really good rapport with have started coming here and hanging out, and they want to support me. They want to support this business. They like what it's doing, but like by and large, most people I think consume coffee in a very ritualistic kind of way. Like, this is my routine. Like, what I do is I get to my desk, then I check my email, and then at 9:35 I go to wherever and I get my chai, and then I XYZ. I think we're going to find a lot more people who are like, will be able to work us into their routine as things go. But like, if this just isn't close or isn't convenient for people, like, they're not going to come here. Yeah. I knew this guy named Edwin Martinez, who owns a really well-known coffee farm in Guatemala called Finca El Anerto. Like, he opened this tiny little coffee shop in Seattle. And this was maybe like 10 years ago or something like that. And it was like struggling. And he like started asking people like, oh, like, why do you come here? Like, why do you come here? Like, why do you come here? And like, the quality of the coffee or what they served, like, wasn't even in the top 5. It was all about just like, oh, the location is great. You have what I need. I enjoy hanging out there. So as much as I have a rapport with people, I think like they've come to check us out, but if it's not convenient for them, like, they'll come see us once in a while, and not all the time. But I think I have peace with that too. And like think about this. Like, think about, like, I don't know, where's a great place, wherever. Say even a place like, say, like Five Guys. Like, if you knew somebody that went and got like a cheeseburger at Five Guys like 6 days a week, you would stage an intervention. Like, dude, I like Five Guys. Everyone likes Five Guys. You cannot eat there 5 days a week. So if we're a place where people come like once a week, every other week to get something that's a little bit more special, like I have a lot of peace with that.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. So I want to cut it on like the, business talk. Just want to have some fun. I just have like a few quick questions.
Sure. Okay.
And kind of go from there, honestly.
All right.
I wish I had a timer. Be like, you got 1 minute and 30 seconds. Okay. Go. But what's the most fun thing about owning your own business?
The most fun thing about owning a business is seeing all the smiling faces. Seeing people that I know, seeing people that I don't know come and enjoy themselves and just like be happy is a really, really nice feeling. Like, to be that place where people come and like they do self-care, they get to treat themselves to something, they get to have a conversation with somebody that they know and they like. When we facilitate that, then I feel like we're doing it right, and that makes me really happy.
Awesome. Next one. What excites you? I never see so much energy from someone talk about something that they're not very, very, very passionate about.
Yeah.
What excites you so much about coffee?
What excites me so much about coffee?
As you're drinking tea.
The way that coffee reflects where it comes from and the cultures that go into it really excite me. Like, when you taste a coffee or you taste two coffees and they taste different from each other, like, what you taste is you taste the taste of place, and you taste the taste of the culture that goes into creating that type of coffee. So those are the things that like I keep coming back to. Like, you get a coffee and you taste it and you're like, this coffee has this really unique quality. Like, why is that? So we're, as much as we like kind of live in this golden age of coffee where like we know so much about coffee, like there's so much that we don't know about coffee. Like, if you go to a great brewery, like you go to Company Brewing and you're like, oh, I love your Space Whistle IPA. Like, it tastes like this. Like, what's going on? Like, I'm all so jealous of the way that those people can say like, oh, well, we use this grain, we use this hops, we did X, Y, Z, and that creates a beverage that's like, you know, we don't really know those things in coffee. Like I can say like some stuff about like terroir or whatever, but we have all this potential to like learn so much about like what makes coffee taste the way that it does. So I'm really excited about learning those things. But yeah, I think what excites me also is just like, I just like how happy it makes people.
All right, back to it. Where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I'd be foolish not to say like, we really would like to see this get to a place where we could do 2. I think it would be a lot easier to like do what we want to do for ourselves and for our employees with a little bit of a larger company. So what I'd love to see is this business find a place where it's growing and being successful, and we could do another couple canaries, maybe 1, maybe 2, and that I could find some kind of like balance in life. We have a 4-year-old, so I'd love to be able to kind of like focus a bit on that and find some space for other stuff in my life that I love as well, like reading, writing, taking care of plants, stuff like that. Yeah.
I'll ask the last question now, and the second to last question after this.
Okay.
Where did you have your best cup of coffee, and do you know, and who made it? What barista made it for you?
All right. Let me just
It's a tough
think
one,
about
isn't
that
it?
for a second. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So many of the best coffee experiences that I've had have been with like groups of people where you're like maybe tasting a bunch of coffees at the same time and like one just like jumps out at you. So I can think of a number of occasions where like, yeah, you taste a coffee and you're just like kind of like blown away by it, and then you look around the room and everyone's kind of blown away by it, and you just think that is an incredibly special cup of coffee. So I think it gets a little harder when you're inside an industry. Like you get, what you learn to do is be really picky. So it's kind of tough for me sometimes to like sit back and just let myself enjoy a cup of coffee, because I find myself like sort of intellectually engaged with the cup to a point where it's like, yeah, you know, you start thinking about like the pieces of it rather than the experience of it. But yeah, I've had some really lovely cappuccinos at Everyman 2 in Soho. And let's see, I've had some really beautiful espresso experiences at Baked and Wired in Washington, D.C. Some really, really nice coffees from them. And where else would I think about? What am I thinking about right now? I'm thinking about somewhere in L.A. So much, and I think so much of like what makes a great, like memorable coffee is like kind of like where you are and who you're with. But yeah, I remember going to Intelligentsia's Silver Lake coffee shop with Scott Lucy, who's a good friend of mine, who owns Kickapoo Coffee over here in the 3rd Ward, and like getting espresso with him there and just thinking like, this is just awesome, you know? I think that's a memory that I have that I think about kind of fondly.
Awesome. Last question. We talked a little bit before we hit record about you. You were a student athlete for 2 years.
Yeah.
So how has that competitiveness helped you in some of the barista competitions that you've been in the past?
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's sort of interesting. Like, I think in my 30s, I've sort of like tried to distance myself from that like intense level of like, oh, I'm gonna be better than you. I'm gonna be better than you. But I would be foolish to say like that sort of desire to like do something well for the worth of doing something well. I mean, that's how I got good at what I do, right? That desire to like push myself and be better than the people around me. Like, oh, I'm going to make better latte art than you. I'm going to make better tasting coffee than you. And I'm going to be nicer to all the people than you. Right. So, which is sort of a strange thing to say. So, but like after I got to a place where I was doing that stuff really well, like I think I thought maybe a little bit about like what you're thinking about right now, which is like what really makes me feel great is to like help the people around me be great, right? Like this is what I do, this is what you can do. And so one of the things that has really made me happy, and like if I were to leave a legacy, I'd rather have it not be like, oh, Colin's amazing. I'd rather have it be like Colin helps the people around him be amazing.
I agree. I think that's one thing just with everyone, every successful person just in general. Sometimes you start off for selfish reasons because you want to be the best, you want to get better, you want to make a lot of money, you want to do this, you want to do that. But once you flip the script and you're like, you know what? I can achieve those things, but I can only achieve those things if I make the people around me better. And it's like, I'm not doing it for any of that stuff anymore. I'm trying to, put one smile on a customer's face at the end of the day. I'm trying to, help my coworker or employee just in general.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I was lucky enough to swim with like Olympic level athletes at Nebraska Lincoln. And like sometimes when you are at that level, it becomes like almost this like solipsistic obsession with like, if you're going to be at that level, like it's almost like you can't really do it for anybody but yourself. Like you have to be so incredibly driven and focused on like you and what you need to do that it like eclipses anything else. And I wondered if in a way, like I almost was never even able to kind of like do that, the way that those people kind of mustered that focus and that like they put the blinders on, man, like this is about like what I'm doing. And like those people excel in a real particular kind of way. But they're maybe not the best like team players. Yeah. Maybe they win gold medals, but like, do you want to work alongside them? Do you want to share a lane with them in the pool? I don't know.
What did you sacrifice to get that gold
Precisely,
medal?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, that's a struggle that they've got to deal with, and I can only imagine like that is a struggle that for a lot of those like gold medal Olympians. I mean, look at, if we're on something like, look at Michael Phelps, like I can't even imagine like the kind of things. And like, he's obviously had these sort of like public demons that he's wrestled with his like drunk driving or whatever, like, so yeah.
Gotcha. Cool, man. That's all I have. Do you have any questions for me or anything that you want to speak on that we didn't cover?
No, I think you did a really good job, I think, of trying to like capture like what went into making this place what it is. And I appreciate you asking some good questions and like putting me on the spot a little bit. So it's great.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.